Well, hello and welcome to my channel. This is John, and I am going to tell you a little bit about the Bestech Kendo today. Bestech was a company that sort of serviced about more or less a year ago, rather suddenly, and came out with some very nice and interesting designs. I've only been able to obtain, because I'm in Europe, obtain some samples of these knives recently, and they also sort of went under my radar. Bestech makes some budget knives like this Kendo, and then they also make some more expensive in better materials knives. They are cheap budget knives, we could call them, are around €50, $50 perhaps, and they're more expensive, are above €200. So I have been sort of looking at the budget models, because that's where I sort of feel more comfortable. Without further ado, let's go to look at the blade of this knife. We have a very nice tanto style, if you're into tanto, yeah, and with a bit of an extra grind here, and even a bevel and a micro bevel at the end, so that you can actually sharpen it, but it might be a bit more difficult to sharpen than the usual drop points or whatever. We can see that there's a black accent spine on the spine of the knife and back at the ricasso, and if you don't like that, this knife even comes without that, and of course also in different colors, including green and black, and this, which I believe is called sand color. It comes very sharp. This is the factory edge, which I just dropped a bit after some use, and it is quite sharp. Not razor sharp, but quite sharp. And we see the Bestech logo at the blade, and it is D2 steel. There has been some issues with this steel chipping. I think Bestech sort of addressed the issue and are trying to figure out why. And I can tell you that I haven't had any issues with this one, but I haven't used it heavily either. So, but from what I experienced, they were very responsive to questions from users, which is always a nice thing. Moving on to the handle, G10 handle. In this case, beige or sand, a little bit of milling just for some accents, but otherwise a very clean handle, and pivot with the Bestech logo. On the other side, a very deep carry pocket clip, which that's a good thing in my book. Unfortunately, only right side tip up, a lanyard hole, and looking at the back of the handle, very open and with nested liners, and I have had this apart. The liners are very light, but it is still a very sturdy knife, no chance of pushing it together or anything. And then of course the backspacer back here. Looking at the fit and finish, the blade is a sort of a satin finish. The last belt you can see with the, if I take it a bit closer, it was a very fine belt, and it gives a nice satin finish. It doesn't look unfinished in any way. Outside on the handle, it feels very nicely rounded off. There's a little bit of rough corners inside, so if your skin It sort of gets into the knife, you can feel it, but it is not a big issue, but I noticed it. And centering, not perfect, but it's still rather okay, but it's not perfect. Lockup, around 40-35%, which is quite nice in my book. And if we look at the overall, very small flipper, which manages to function quite well anyway. So it's not a big issue to flip it out, which brings me to the action, which is amazingly smooth. It is a very smooth knife on bearings, and flips out very nicely and almost drops shut. It's not the snappiest of flippers because of a heavy blade, I guess, but it flips very reliably. No issue there, even with a sort of small flipper tab. Very okay. No blade play whatsoever, which is the best thing in my book. Ergonomically, it's a very straight knife, and that means that even large hands, everyone gets a good grip on it. Maybe it's not the perfect for everyone, but it fits everyone quite nicely. And it doesn't depend on the size of your hand, smaller. Everyone can get a decent grip on it. I have been thinking about what I could compare this with. The obvious competition would be real steel or maybe rake knives, and I think sort of quality-wise, it is a tiny bit below real steel. Real steel feels, and this is very subjective, just feels a little bit better, more finished perhaps than this one, but it's not by far. And rake knives, sort of same deal. I think they are very comparative, the rake and the Bestech knives. Very nice action in both. If I should say something about Bestech compared to rake, it would be that Bestech usually have a better detent. The rake knives, some of them have a little weak detent, but they have so many other qualities. Still, I like the shape, I like the size of this one. I am a fan of bigger knives, and although this tanto style is a very, dare I say, tactical, it is also very handy and useful for opening boxes and doing that sort of task. But it is a little bit of a tactical blade, and I mentioned this grind here. Since they put an edge on that, it would be easier to sharpen. Then, for instance, I have a Wii was sort of the same. The Wii 710 was sort of the same point, but no extra edge, so that would be much more difficult to sharpen than this one, because it has sort of a prepared edge in advance. So overall, this is my first Bestech. I was quite impressed with it. I had seen some reviews, some American reviews, since they surfaced there sort of the first, and I was quite impressed, and I wanted one, and I'm still quite impressed. They are indeed, for the price, very decent knives. More than decent, actually. I quite like them, and I have a few more on the way, which I will of course show you as we go along. I don't know when they will arrive, but it will be, I think it would be this week, and then I'll of course make some more reviews. A quick size comparison, Ontario Red 1, that's a knife that most people know. And as we can see, it's it's sort of the same size. Even there's a bit of the perspective of this, but they are actually very much the same size. And well, just to return to the impressions, very nice knife indeed. I'm quite impressed. I like it a lot, and amazing action. Lies very well in hand, and as I said, we are in real steel, maybe rig territory. Very, very good knife for the price, and I think I can recommend it. I will, however, be observing a little bit about this steel thing, and maybe update this video's description if I have to, but so far no problems here. And with that, I want you to have a nice day, evening, whatever it is in your country. Bye bye.